Okay, so a couple of things that I wanted to mention today. I've been getting a few comments on the Mulcher, and people are interested in buying one like the one that I have. I guess they've seen some of the videos or whatever. Well, and the hookups. So when you buy a Chinese forestry mulcher, based on what the three that I have bought, and I know they're all the same, it comes with 5/8 fittings. Okay, it took me a minute to figure all this out. It comes with 5/8 fittings. Well, 5/8 fittings are not going to fit in your skid. You're not going to. They look like they'll fit in the standard plug, but they won't. At least on my KUBOTA, and the guy that bought one of them off of me, his machine too. I don't know of an American skid steer, and I could be off, but I'm pretty sure I'm not. I don't know of an American skid steer that has 5/8 fittings on the auxiliary. I guess you could get them if you wanted to. I guess I don't. But Chinese ones, I guess they use 5/8 or whatever the metric equivalent to 5/8 is, whatever. So what I've done when I bought the Chinese mulchers is, in order to work with the high flow on my KUBOTA. Now every skid high flow, you can have high flow and not have the 3/4 fittings. It can have the 1/2 fittings, which is what the standard flow on my skid is. So you can still run in, like Bobcat, for instance. Bobcat has, they got high flow machines, but I haven't seen, I haven't seen, like on my buddy, he's got a T870 or whatever. It's like 100 horsepower. It has the same fittings that are standard flow, right? Plug-ins. It only has 2. Well, it's actually got 4. It's got a plug-in, 2 plug-ins for the hydraulics, a plug-in for the case drain, and then the electrical plug-in. The KUBOTA machine has 6 plug-ins. You got 2 3/4, which is the high flow. You got 2 1/2 which is the standard flow, and you got the same size, 1 case drain and 1 electrical plug-in. Now, when I plug something into the standard fittings, I can hit the high flow on my KUBOTA 75.3. I can hit the high flow, and it does make whatever attachment I'm running speed up, whatever it is. I've done it with the power rake and with the standard flow brush cutter that I have. So just because an attachment comes with what appears to be standard flow fittings, 1/2, doesn't mean that it's a standard flow attachment. Because you can put it on a Bobcat high flow and plug it in, and it's the same thing. KUBOTA, with my minimal experience with skid steers, KUBOTA is the only skid steer I ever had where it had the big 3/4 fittings as well as the 1/2 fittings. So this is just general information for guys that are thinking about buying a Chinese mulcher, like you guys have seen me buy. And I'm assuming that all the Raytree ones are the same, or handy ones are the same. I'm almost positive they are. Um, mine are Handy brand Chinese mulchers, but seems to be a lot of confusion, and I understand it, why there would be, and I don't really understand all the reasons on why you can go buy a 100 horsepower high flow Bobcat, and then you can go buy a 100 horsepower Kubota, and the Kubota have twice the fittings that the Bobcat has. The thinking to me, and with the hydraulic guys at the hydraulic shop, is if you got high flow on your Kubota and it has the 3/4 fittings, and I'm assuming that any Kubota from the 75.3 onward would have, if it's high flow, would have 3/4 inch fittings and the standard flow fittings. I haven't seen a Kubota that didn't, but I don't know everything there is to know either. So you can't look at an attachment and the fittings on the end to determine whether it's high flow or not. That doesn't tell you anything, because if you got a Bobcat machine, then the standard flow fittings is only thing you can plug it into, because that's all there is. But it's not really a standard. It's standard what we would, Kubota owners would consider a standard flow fitting. And the only reason why Kubota owners would think that is because we have a 3/4 inch fitting that's this big around. And obviously a 3/4 inch fitting is you're gonna get more flow from it, by default. There's more flow, with less pressure. I think that if you're plugging in a standard flow, and I don't know, I think a lot of the forestry mulching guys, they run machines and the fittings are 1/2 inch fittings. I don't really understand why Kubota and maybe a handful of other ones have the 3/4 inch. My thinking is, if you got 3/4 inch fittings on your machine and they're high flow fittings as well as standard fittings on your machine, then you're running high flow. I think that having the bigger 3/4 inch fittings for the high flow, it makes it easier to cool the hydraulic fluid down, and you can get more flow to whatever attachment you're using. And you probably, I don't know for sure, but you probably have less pressure, because imagine a pump like on my Kubota. I hit the high flow button and it's forcing all that fluid through the little fittings. It's going to create more heat, more pressure, creates more heat, right? That's my thinking. I could be wrong. So that's one of the reasons why my Kubota, I think, doesn't get so hot when it's running that forestry mulcher. That's what I think. And why my buddy's Bobcat T870 or whatever, it's 96 or something horsepower, why every time he runs the forestry mulcher, the machine runs hot. The hydraulic fluid runs way too hot for him, and he has to shut the machine, turn the attachment off. I do that on my Kubota. I do when I start seeing the temperature get on up to 175 or 180, the temperature of the hydraulic fluid, I will just shut the high flow down and just let the machine idle for about 5 minutes, and then it'll drop it all the way down to 130 or whatever, and then I'll run for another 2 hours and it'll get back up there to 175, 180, and then I'll do the same thing. I think that having the bigger fittings, I know for a fact you get more flow. You have to. I mean, I mean, in my limited knowledge now, I do have a disclaimer. So that kind of explains this high flow thing that people have been asking a lot. A lot of people in the comments have asked me about, the high flow and why the standard flow. Why does an attachment come with standard flow fittings? Well, we've dubbed them standard flow fittings. They're really not, because they can accommodate high flow machines as well. So instead of dubbing them standard flow fittings and high flow fittings, what I've done in my own head is I've dubbed them 1/2 inch fittings, which is for standard flow, and 3/4 inch fittings, which is high flow. But the standard flow can run high flow even if you don't have a place to plug in 3/4 inch fittings. I know it sounds crazy. I know it's a little bit confusing, but it's really more of a KUBOTA thing than anything else in my brief experience with these machines. So